Hey people, welcome to the channel. So it's time for my next big running adventure. On Saturday at 6 AM, I'm going to set off for my third ever attempt at the 100-mile ultra distance. I completed one 100-miler back in 2017. I dropped out on my second attempt last year in Berlin at 69 miles due to my pesky little toes. But this year I'm going back for my second tilt at the Berlin Wall Ultra with lessons learned from last year's DNF. And in this video I'll share the challenge that lies ahead, how I've prepped physically and mentally, what I'll do differently, and finally reveal the shoes that I'm going to choose to take on anywhere up to 30 hours of running around the old Berlin Wall. So what lies ahead then? Well, the Berlin Wall 100-mile, 160-kilometre course runs along the Berlin Wall Trail in a big loop around former West Berlin. Each year the course switches direction. This year we're running anti-clockwise, so it's going to feel different out there from last year. We're going to hit different parts of the course at different times, which should switch it up and keep it interesting. Along the way you get to see the big sights of central Berlin like the Brandenburg Gate, Checkpoint Charlie and the East Side Gallery. Those are going to come at the end of the run this time though. But it's also a wonderful journey into the green suburbs of Berlin. The route is mostly flat and paved, and it runs partly through urban areas but also through forests and along meadows and fields. So there's some good variety there in terms of the terrain. We start at 6 AM and solo runners like myself have 30 hours to cover the distance. Along the way there are 25 aid stations on the course, so it's roughly one every 6 to 7 kilometres. That's pretty frequent. We get 3 big drop bag points as well where we can access parcelled up kit that we've sent forward. Things we might need like clean socks, fuel and all that stuff. So when it comes to pacing, I said this last time out and it's still true, running 100 miles requires conservative and disciplined pacing. Last time, hands up, I wasn't great at that. I got caught up running with other people for the first 40 miles. I think I struggled to settle into my own rhythm, and at times in the first part of the race I found I was really suffering much sooner than I really wanted. I really had some dark moments early on. They passed, but those things do leave a mark psychologically. So I've learned from that, and this time I plan to run my own race. I will go out and run on my own. Now, to give you an idea of a potential target, to complete the race in under 24 hours, I'll need to move an average of just under 14.5-minute miles for 100 miles. That's 9 minutes per kilometre in new money. That's including any time spent at the aid stations or waiting at traffic lights and all that stuff. But this time I've simplified the plan. I've got a really simple plan. I'm going to run on feel. I'm going to drop into a flow that feels natural at every moment in the race. I'll also aim to try and hit the beat of covering 5 miles per hour. Now, patience is crucial over this distance, but momentum and feeling like you're making good progress are also powerful psychological levers. So I want to try and move with purpose and consistency, but at a pace that's going to be something I can maintain. Now, another big part of that is minimising my time at aid stations. There are 25 aid stations in total, so even if you spend 5 minutes at each one of those, that adds up to a couple of hours. Throw in 3 bigger bag drop aid stations where you can spend much longer, and you can easily lose 2 to 3 hours at aid stations. So I think I'm going to skip through some of them, be fast on others and allow a little longer at the 3 biggies, but the idea is basically just to crack on as much as possible. Fueling then, one of the hardest parts of moving for this long and covering this distance is fueling. Running 100 miles burns a lot of calories, surprise, surprise. Eating regularly throughout is crucial, but not necessarily that easy. I'll need to get in around 60 to 90 grams of carbs per hour and keep up my electrolyte intake. Fortunately, the aid stations are very frequent, as I've mentioned, and really well stocked. They have Apfelschorle, which is an absolute win. It's basically spritzed apple juice with sparkling water. So good sugar, good water. I'll also carry some of my own fuel. But in the past, I think I've carted too much. I've taken too much fuel. I've been carrying kilos of gels and God knows what I haven't eaten. This time I plan to keep it minimal and rely a lot on the aid stations. So I'm going to pack a selection of Precision Fuel 90-gram carb pouches, which are ACE, neutral flavoured, resealable. And I'll take some of their chews as well, along with a few Vala gels, the date-based gels, some Veloforte bars, some Lucio Delitos blocks, and some Torque chews. Mixture of textures, mixture of ways of getting it in flavours. Then I'll supplement this with food from the frequent aid stations with whatever takes my fancy basically. And I'm going to use the aid stations for the real food and that salty, savoury stuff. In my head I'm thinking as well that I might start savoury early and save going to sweet until a bit later on One big problem is that, after 16 hours of running and eating all the same stuff, it gets very hard to carry on eating it. So, I'm wondering if kind of changing that up and going savoury first and then moving to the sweet might help. Shoes then, the difficult bit, the bit of faffing and prattling. And last time out, I ran in 3 different shoes. I couldn't decide. The On Cloud Surfer 7, the Saucony Kinvara Pro, and I finished in the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3. Part of that was to test shoes, part of that was because I couldn't make my mind up. But actually, switching footwear along the way really did help to keep the feet and the legs feeling fresher, different movements. I went from mid-cushion to really big cushion, back to just right cushion. And I think I'm going to do the same this year. I'll start in one shoe, I'll stick 2 alternatives in the drop bags along the course. I'll only change if I feel it's smart to do so at the time. But now choosing which shoes has been a tricky decision in many ways. I'm still sort of making my mind up even this late. But here's what I know I need in my 100-mile shoes. I want disappearing comfort. I want plenty of room in the toe box. I want a reliable cushion but not overly soft ride. I want shoes that I can trust in each step. That's like a good balance of cushion protection but with some response to help the legs. I want to have a nice clip-along roll-through from the midsole. Something that's not too heavy, not too soggy, has good stability, not too wobbly, and a shoe that supports you when you're not moving particularly with good form, when things get really ragged. As I mentioned, I definitely need a roomy toe box. That's in terms of length and across the top of the toes. And that's a shoe that really is easy to take on and off as well in case you want to change socks. Now, there's some off-road, but nothing road shoes won't handle on this course, so I'm going to go for road shoes. I also need something that's going to be comfortable when I'm walking, because there's going to be stretches where I'm walking in them. So based on that, I've whittled my list down to 5 shoes at the moment as it stands. I've got the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, mainly because it has a very, very roomy toe box. It's light, it's cushioned, lacks a bit of stability perhaps, but for the first miles, this shoe could do a great job. Then I have the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4, essentially my go-to shoe. I know it well, I love running in it, I love the easy ride with a bit of energy. It's got very good balance, this shoe, good room as well. I also have the On Cloud Monster Hyper, which is a shoe that I ran the Comrades Marathon in, so I know it can deliver comfort and the ride that I need over 55 miles. There's much more cushion here in this shoe, so if I want something to go to that's higher cushion, that might be an option. Another one will be the New Balance 1080 V13. It's also on the list because they're supremely cushioned. It's the softest shoe on this list, but still quite light. I'm considering having these as the 3rd shoe, the comfy slipper basically, to soften my miles home. Then there's potentially one curveball if it arrives in time. I've got the Asics Superblast 2 being sent to me. I'm not sure if they're going to turn up in time. I've also not run in those yet, but I've heard many good things that makes me think they might have ultra potential. Now I'm erring towards starting in the Brooks Hyperion Max 2, moving to the Speed 4, and having the 1080 V13 or the Cloud Monster Hyper in my drop bag to bring me home. That's where my head is at the moment. So how am I feeling? Well, I'm excited for this race. I'm feeling really quite relaxed. I can't wait to get out there. I'm relishing the chance to unplug from the world for 30 hours or so, to go into that little ultra bubble where you're kind of uncontactable. No one can get to you really. You choose who you sort of speak to. It's just you and the 5 metres in front of you, and it's a chance to switch off the brain from all the noise for a bit, put the mind on rinse essentially, and just be in the moment. I feel very lucky to have the chance to go and do it. Now in the past I've really fretted a fair amount about races like this. I've worried about too many what ifs, what happens if this happens or that happens. But I guess with experience you learn that you can roll with most of the punches no matter what. Shit will happen. I will suffer out there at some points. There will be moments where I want to quit. It's going to hurt. I have to embrace that. But I've learned over the years that these moments will pass. You can't always control the narrative. The brain tends to serve up bits and pieces when it wants to. Feelings and emotions, highs and lows come and go. But you can always choose how to respond to those feelings and emotions, or whatever that brain kicks in, or recognise the feelings, and you know what to do with it. You can ignore it, you can lead into it, you can acknowledge it out loud. It helps to just speak to yourself. Well, most importantly, the idea is to try and be kind to yourself when the real bleak bits bite. You have to frame these things right, and for this, I'm just happy to be off on a great big adventure. One change, this is the first time I'm doing something like this without my crew, my family who come to support me, and that's going to throw up a different challenge. I'm going to miss my hugs and the promises of the hugs that dragged me to the next aid station. I won't also have anyone to whinge and moan at. At the same time, looking at the bright side, perhaps it's going to help me be quicker through the aid station to keep that momentum. But anyway, if you want to come along with me and offer some real-time support, you're going to be able to follow me for updates on Instagram over at manvmiles on Insta. Messages will be welcome whilst I'm digging in. So yeah, please go follow me and yeah, send messages from 6 a.m. on Saturday. So that's it. Next stop, Berlin. Thanks for watching and for all your support as ever. I will see you on the other side. And in the meantime, good luck to everyone in your own running challenges, whatever it is that you're doing. Whether it's a mile or 100, it's all the same. And happy running, people.